past the group bracket so far that brought a Netheron.
Yeah, a Netheron is really only good in the matchups where you have time, notably like the mirror matchup and an early threat against Demon Hunter, right? I think that's where it shines the most, which is interesting that he included in his lineup when his ban strategy. Maybe he didn't expect the Demon Hunter to be as relevant this week, but we kind of all knew. And that's why he included it, but it really is not going to do anything in some of these faster matchups. Because against Shadow Priest, if you're getting to a full hand size, you're probably going to die before a Netheron even has a chance to come out. You much rather have the Knolls because you can play those without a full hand, or at least you're killing something on the board when you're playing it. But here it's not going to be that useful. But you can think of it as taking the spot of like a Rustrot Viper, which he doesn't have in the deck. And then, Rustrot Viper also is not... It can be decent in the matchup because you can just play it for tempo, but it's not the end-all, be-all like some of the healing removal spells or Soul Rend that you'd want to see.
Right, and I love this from Muzzy, actually deciding to coin out a Neophyte here. Not even going to play the quest, but wants to get on board. There's not really a ton of spells in the priest deck. I think it's just the Raised Deads, if I'm not mistaken. So that's pretty much it. But just getting something on board to start contesting these minions and hopefully try to stall the game a little bit longer to find some healing and some other resources to deal with the minions could take Muzzy further in the game. But yeah, if Muzzy just played out the quest there, he's already pretty far behind. Unfortunately, it just does die to the hero power, but it does force DimitriKazov to use that hero power and not further develop on the board.
Yeah, which is the big thing there. He wants to just accelerate how fast he finds Soul Rend, and the less damage he takes, the more time he has to find it. And Dimitri's follow-up is okay, but if he has to hero power this, if he's not playing a Tour Guide to kind of get that cheaper and further develop onto the board, again, I'd say that's a win for Muzzy overall. And we do have to acknowledge something for a moment. Don, if you humor me for a second. There are a significant amount of things missing from Dimitri's background. There is no guitar. There are no drumsticks. Maybe that's a mattress. I don't know. I'm still going to keep the question mark there. And as far as I can tell, there's no coat, unless that is a coat hanging on the side of his bed. But he's thrown us a curveball once again. Sneaky Dimitri, that's what they call him in America's Grandmasters. That's a nickname everybody knows him by.
Everybody, yeah. 100% of people know him by that name, I'm sure. Yep. Maybe it's just serious mode. He's gone into serious mode for this week, and it's just plain boring background, nothing going on.
No distractions.
Serious time. That's right, no distractions.
Well, it worked in distracting me, so success overall for Dimitri, I'd say.
Oh, wait. One thing I'm noticing is, this hand for Muzzy is just so clunky. I feel like we've seen that almost every time that we've seen Warlock already today. It's just large minions that can't come down on the board.
Yep. There's a Netheron. I mean,
yeah.
He could. Nope, he can't. It wouldn't even have a full hand. They have 9 cards. So touch is pretty good. This is quite interesting. Quest still not online. Now, obviously, Quest is... I've even debated about throwing away the Quest at certain points against Shadow Priest because, one more card to find Soul Rend. But you do need to eventually find a way to actually win the game. And the Quest completions get you faster threats, faster flesh giants, and negate some of the damage that you're taking along the way because you do get to heal up. Like when you play Backfire, you're technically speaking only taking 1.5 damage or maybe a little bit more than that as you progress further. But we'll probably want to get that online sooner or later, and this may be one of the last opportunities he has to do so.
Yeah. There's the Soul Rend.
Ooh.
Okay, well, not bad timing either with the homunculus going to be waking up next turn. It's still going to have 1 health, but there is now the option of Soul Rend and Touch of the Netherzeem to follow up as well. But what a draw for Dimitri. That's a card.
Yeah. The only problem is he's not looking at that much pressure on board. Usually you'd want to play it when you have a lethal set up. So let's say he were to dump Twilight Deceptor and the Desk Imp and push
Pray with me.
5 here. There would be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 power on board. I mean, it's incredibly close. But I think you take it because when else is an extra turn going to do this much for your game plan?
Quickly.
Well,
cool. So these are very hard cards to play. Ray's dead. If you played it, he would die. So you can't play that. Voracious Reader, if he plays it, it would draw cards for Dimitri. Not very good. I don't even know what I would do in this situation. Maybe you just play the Voracious Reader and have something on board anyway. But you're probably going to Soul Rend next turn, so is that really that valuable? Maybe force Dimitri to have to spend the mana on Voracious Reader if he wants to get the draw the next turn. It's kind of a difficult situation.
this is...
Play the 0 mana 1/1. Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
I mean, that absorbs 1 damage. That's a success. That's 1 less damage that's going to his face, which is quite valuable, I'd say.
With Dimitri knowing that there's that Soul Rend in hand, he does know the Soul Rend and the Touch, but I feel like this Og Merchant is actually kind of interesting now. Help keep an additional minion on the board.
And actually, maybe Muzzy's not supposed to play anything that last turn, because this 1/1, it could be actively working against him, because otherwise Dimitri, he could hero power his own minion, but then that's 2 less damage that's going to your face in order to make room for like a Guardian Og Merchant, the Voracious Reader. But now Dimitri can trade in one of these 1/1s and make room for something that's going to actively work against Muzzy. So kind of a weird situation that we found ourselves in.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see the trade and probably Og Merchant on the Deceptor here. Oh, he's going to go for keeping the Homunculus alive.
Yeah, this makes sense because he saw the Touch. So he knows that Soul Rend plus Touch would still clear off the Deceptor. So the Homunculus is the only minion on the board that he'd have to touch first and then Soul Rend. So that makes sense, but it's still a rough spot because he can't get the healing off the Touch, which is incredibly awkward.
I wonder.
And so if he goes for Touch first and then Soul Rend, he heals for 4 but leaves 2 damage on the board, which he's not dealing with anytime soon because he has no more removal in the hand. If he touches first, he would... wait, no. If he touches first and then... If he touches first and then plays Soul Rend, he actually would discard 7, which would allow him to play his Baron Scavenger with the 1 card he had remaining. With the 1 mana he had remaining. Ever worth it? Be at 4?
I feel like it was. It's because I mean, how does he die from that spot?
So if he doesn't get the healing, then he dies over 2 turns to a hero power. He's only at 2 out of 6 on his quest right now, so he wouldn't be able to even like hero power and complete the quest to negate the damage that he took to try and find removal. At least at this point, Muzzy can now tap, know he won't be dead, find an extra turn, and then have the quest completion in his back pocket after that. And he can still get the scavenger next turn. So I guess I like this line of thinking just to make sure that he has the luxury of a life tap next turn, and know that he won't be dead.
Yeah, not dead. So basically the line he took is he's also trying to figure out how he gets further into the game than just the 1 turn, right? If he had gone for that touch of the Natharazim first, that's more of a I don't die this turn, but I die in 2 turns, whereas that line he took is trying to find a way to stay in the game to turn it around so that he can actually win the game and not just stay alive. And I think that's something that we've seen a lot. And I apologize, I don't remember who I saw talking about it. It might have been Lampy Series on Twitter, talking about there's been situations where, during Grandmasters, he's been making too many plays to just stay alive instead of trying to find ways to win. And I think that was a perfect example of that line of thinking.
Yeah, I would say so. I saw a tweet as well. Playing too safe can sometimes be a problem that even the most experienced players run into. And now, Muzzy takes an even bigger risk. It wasn't even about trying to find the luxury to life tap. It was trying to find the luxury to play backfire. Now he goes up to 7, can play both Baron Scavengers, has quest completion in his back pocket next turn, along with some removal options in Shadow Blast, and would be able to get the Flesh Giant down guaranteed because we'll get the quest completion, the life tap, etc. And now he doesn't even have to worry about Mind Render or Lucia ruining his game plan. So what's on the board is on the board for Dimitri. So this has worked out, I think, quite well for Muzzy.
Yeah, it really has. I think you could even see that in his demeanor, right? He finished that turn, and after he hit the end turn button, he kind of sat back a little, stretched. He's feeling, whereas those couple turns earlier, he was kind of making these like really disgusted looking faces, but he looks even a little bit more comfortable in where he's at with this game now. And yeah, Dimitri is going to have to be the one now to try to make plays to figure out how he's going to win from this point. More healing.
More healing. But now the problem for Muzzy is there's a lot of minions on board that are contesting the scavenger now. He's got the Soul Rend, but then would quickly be entering fatigue without a real way to actually close out the game, because he wouldn't be getting, because of the Cold Neophyte, he wouldn't be getting Flesh Giant down as well on this turn.
Yeah.
So and he'd be like, if he starts taking fatigue damage before he's anywhere close to completing quest, which right now he hasn't even completed the first tick of it, it's going to be an awkward situation. He needs to try and get the Flesh Giant down sooner rather than later, and that would mean leaving a lot of these minions up on the board.
I wonder.
Okay, he can do all of this. He can Unstable Shadow Blast, Drain Soul, and Flesh Giant.
Okay, I really like this as well because saving the Soul Rend, Muzzy knows there hasn't been the Gandling yet, which, with our great caster vision, we see that is in hand, just waiting. Maybe not the best minions along with it in hand to use. But if that gambling were to come down and create some 4/4s, this Soul Rend is how Muzzy clears that board.
Class dismissed. Now time for the real.
And doubly, if Dimitri doesn't clear off the Baron Scavenger, Muzzy just has lethal from hand with the Battle Master. So I think Dimitri should know this is a possibility. I imagine all these trades are going to come in. Giving up the draw from the Voracious Reader at this point is worth it because this is going to be the last turn of the game. There's no reason to have any cards. One player is dying going into the next turn.
Muzzy could just go for a clear. I guess he'd have to trade the Giant into the Gandling after the Soul Rend, which feels terrible.
Yes, it does.
Unless he taps to try to find something, but...
Let me look at their last cards in his deck. He does... In his last 3 cards, he has a Flesh Giant, which is free, and a Mortal Coil. So...
Okay. Oh, he's going for it. Oh, doesn't get it.
Oh, no. And now if he doesn't hit Giant and has to trade in, that's pretty brutal.
Yep.
Because then he won't have the mana left to be able to play the Mortal Coil. It's just Mortal Coil Flesh Giant as the last 2 cards. So I think you go for it anyway, because if you hit Giant, you can feel okay with trading. Oh, no, it's the Coil. No. Oh, he wouldn't have been able to play it anyway because he would only have the... he needed to hit it off the first tap if he wanted it.
But the Giant there would have been great. Now he's in this position where he doesn't know if he has to trade or not.
Oh, no. I hate it so much.
I think he's past the point of that stabilization, though. I really think that he's in an okay spot now. Dimitri is just top decking and kind of has run out of gas.
I don't care if it's the right play. Trading an A3 into a 3/1 is just... It physically pains me. I hurt right now. That's all I can say. But yeah, Dimitri can start throwing damage to the face, but he should know at this point that there will be a Flesh Giant. There's still a Battle Master available. So if he times this, what kind of clock he has, I mean, I think you need to unload the Void Touch Attendant now because that's only ever going to be 1 extra damage in this case. I'm sure Muzzy's going to do his best to remove everything that's on the board, and maybe Muzzy, because he has to respect the board, will then need to play the Mortal Coil and draw more, and I don't know. It's hard to math this out from this point.
He's just going to take the board, yeah.
Taking 1 fatigue, Void Touch Tier Power would put it down to only 3, and then you take 2 from the fatigue because of Void Touched. Oh, wait. Nope, he doesn't have any Raised Deads left.
No.
No, there's no outs. I don't think it has any immediate impact on the board. I mean, it's incredibly close. He's going to Hero Power for 3, then Muzzy's going to take 2. Because the Void Touch Attendant will count for the fatigue. So he was 1 Hero Power away. There was actually 1 turn where Dimitri decided to develop more instead of Hero Power. Results-oriented thinking would tell us that he would have died anyway because the Battle Master in hand, he wouldn't have been able to kill the Scavenger on board the very next turn. But that was incredibly close. 2 health to spare for Muzzy, but wins a very contested matchup.
Yeah, that really came down to the wire there. I really enjoyed watching that gameplay, but a couple of key choices for Muzzy, I think, that really helped get him there was going for some minion presence in the very beginning and passing on playing the quest initially. And then that turn that we spent quite a bit of time talking about with that decision on the order and where to put the Touch of the Nathrazim and the Soul Rend.
Yeah. The only play that I could see that I could have argued was actually playing the Tiny Fin in that situation, which put him in that awkward spot to begin with. with having to, have a difficult situation of touch plus Soul Rend. Would have been much cleaner to just touch plus Soul Rend and have nothing on board. But outside of that, I think it was very clean for Muzz, and a tough matchup, winning even after a Mind Render Lucia, and a reasonable start for the Shadow Priest is a tough thing to do.
Yes, absolutely. And, gonna bring his own Shadow Priest now. He's gotten the win with the Warlock out of the way, and gonna see if he can take a game down with the Shadow Priest, which I kind of expected to do well, so I wouldn't be surprised to see it snag a win.
An interesting matchup. Oh, yeah. Shadow Priest for Shadow Priest. So this one's pretty cool because it's not about pushing damage at all like Shadow Priest is against other matchups. It's entirely about the early board state and trying to wrestle control from your opponent. It's a matchup where Mind Render Lucia is not very good. Sometimes it can be good in the very late stages of the game, so you give your opponent no counterplay, but when the game is often decided by like turn 4, turn 5 because one player outright takes the board, you don't want a 3-mana 1/3, regardless of its effect, unless it's effect red, kill all your opponent's minions and gain 10 health, which I think players would still complain about less than its current form.
Yeah. Very interesting here. You were talking about very early on kind of that choice between the Chaplain and Deceptors. Muzzy is running both Chaplains, both Deceptors, and a Man-Crick in this list.
Whoa.
Very spicy. I know.
What a greedy boy. What did he even cut?
The Readers.
Oh.
There's no Voracious Readers in this list.
That is very interesting. Running Man-Crick without Thrive in the Shadows is bizarre. Because and especially without the Voracious Readers, because you have nothing in your deck that draws cards except for Traveling Merchant, and is it really drawing a card? It's trading for a different card, and you still have the same amount of cards left in your deck. So I am just going to say that I don't like it, but it's interesting. Well, let's put it that way. I'll keep my language light. It's interesting.
I mean, I guess if it comes down, it is a pretty big body to have to answer, which could go a long way, but yeah, it's giving up the card draw for that is interesting for sure. And that was a pretty nice cleanup there, being able to just buff up the healing there and take out the attendant with the hero power.
Yeah, it's a pretty good opening, and Muzzy, again, it may seem like he has less stuff on the board, but those 1/1s really don't do much unless you can pick up like a Wriggling Horror and really use that to solidify your board position. Dimitri's resigned to just having to hero power here, and that actually happens a lot in the early game in this matchup. You just need to take as much stuff off the board, have the least amount of attackers possible for your opponent to try and gain an edge. It's a very difficult matchup where one mistake, one inefficient turn can mean you're dead, because then your opponent reloads and then you have no answers, when the only way in your entire deck that you have to interact with your opponent's stuff is your, most of the time, 2-mana hero power.
Yeah, I think in a lot of more aggressive mirror matches that those one mistake or an early mistake can really be detrimental. But also, if there is maybe a slight slip up or something doesn't go well for Dimitri, there is that potential backup plan of getting some more card draw from those Voracious Readers, which Muzzy isn't going to have that plan. So
yeah,
kind of interesting to think about that. There's not really a backup plan. Does have this Raise Dead, and I guess can try to stay on board with all this extra health from these chaplains.
Yeah, and Traveling Merchant would be a 4/5 in this instance. Muzzy could. It would be a quote-unquote wasted hero power because it'd be going face, which most of the time it's not a wasted hero power. That's great, but in this matchup, you really want to just be targeting those minions. But it'd be the most power that he can make on board. Alternatively, you could go Desk Imp double Chaplain and just hold the hero power, and then next turn, Tour Guide or hero power Tour Guide and Traveling Merchant, because none of his stuff's likely to get removed. I'm curious which side he decides to go with, because it's actually the same amount of power on board, because the chaplains together equal the amount of at least attack damage that the Traveling Merchant would have, and have even more health combined over the two of them.
I think I like one chaplain here, maybe spreading them out, but gonna go for both of them, I guess. There's no reason to play.
Ooh. It's so terrible.
I think even the children are screaming in horror at this. It's just terrible.
I mean, I'll let you in on a little secret. My children are always screaming in horror.
I feel like many of us are screaming in horror when we see Alicia, but like you said, it may be not as good in this matchup.
Yeah, I trained them young. My son's very first words were "delete Alicia." I didn't even teach him the whole alphabet, only the letters that are in that phrase.
That's it. That's all that's needed.
Yep.
Come, pray with me.
The upside here for Dimitri is that he's got a 2/5 emerging next turn, but he's going to need a pretty big swing turn because Muzzy is not stopping there. I can imagine that Traveling Merchant in some form or another is hitting the board this turn. Might as well get the Twilight Deceptor down. It's more mana efficient, it's more power. And I can imagine he's just going to run away with things from there. He could use the raise at first, maybe find... He does have a one of the 0 mana things in the raised dead pool, but maybe wants something a little bit more impactful from it before playing it, instead of having a chance to buff up the Traveling Merchant just one more stat line. A 6/7, a Boulder Fist Ogre is good enough in this case.
Yep, yeah, that's going to be pretty good. Right, a Desk Imp. It's not impactful, on the other hand. Dimitri doesn't seem very impressed with this hand right now.
He's gonna see what's in there. All right, cool.
Yeah. Okay, this actually could be kind of interesting.
He has had a lot of 0 mana things.
Yeah.
Die, so his raised it could pick up some stuff that he can play immediately, but the downside is if he doesn't pick up 0 mana things, he's giving Muzzy more resources to try and win the game. So I would imagine he's just gonna stop there and not take the chance. Oh no.
And for Dimitri, that previous turn as well, playing out the tour guide, all of those minions were summoned this turn, which means that none of them could attack and trade in to clear up an extra space, even if Dimitri were able to find like 2 0-cost minions. So he couldn't have even played them both. And this is now just becoming a gigantic, ridiculous board for Muzzy.
Dimitri just gives a little smile. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
You have been.
Yep. That's all he could do, I think, at this point.
All right. Well, Muzzy now 2-0 up in the series, and we may be having a quick day on our hands now as Luna opened things up with a sweep, and now Muzzy looking like he's on pace for a second one. Last remaining deck for him is that Garrote Road, I do believe, which you know, it does fall prey to the Shadow Priest more times than not, but I think it is a closer matchup than we're led to believe, at least at the highest level play. On ladder, it's just terrible. You just lose. At least that's what it feels like. But the higher up you go, the better players become at Garrote Rogue and navigating it, and the better the matchup comes for the Rogue, at least closer to 50-50, while I think it is still Shadow Priest favored.
Yeah, I would agree with you as well, and we're gonna see. It's kind of interesting. I don't know. Again, with the ordering of the decks, if Muzzy was just completely going random there, or if he kind of had a plan of saving this Garrote Rogue until the end. But either way, Dimitri is actually switching over to the Warlock, not sticking on that Priest.
Okay, I can see this. This is probably the toughest matchup in his lineup to go up against the Garrote Rogue with, so getting the hardest one out of the way, though. Okay, Muzzy does have no Foxy Frauds in his list. Instead, has an animated Broomstick, which could help a little bit in the Shadow Priest board-based matchups, but I think it will be a slight detriment in versus Handlock, just because you don't have the upside of getting the Swindle activated early to draw more cards. 3-2 on the board can be quite threatening in and of itself. Against Handlock, forces some attention on it, so but it's very slight. It's one card difference. Everything else is almost exactly the same as what we've seen from all the other players.
Yeah, and one interesting thing I think with looking at these deck lists and how they're lining up as well is if Muzzy can get an Octobot early, there's not quite as many of the tools for Dimitri with this Warlock, because he's not running the... Now I just lost the name. Yeah, it's going to be
Shadow
one of those
Blast.
days. Yeah, that one. Thank you. And there is no Thalnos in this version as well to give additional spell damage. So Muzzy could potentially get an early Octobot in this matchup because of the card choices.
Yeah, and honestly, when I think about that a little bit deeper, I would happily Soul Rend an Octobot away alone on board if my opponent's not going to activate it immediately. So that's about the only removal, though. I wouldn't have access to it on turn 2. But Muzzy decides to play a little bit slow, decides to block the coin with Cult Neophyte, which could have been either coin backfire or coin rod, which he definitely wants to avoid. But whoo! Octobot in hand, double field contact. I think he could wait a little bit. There's not too many things that he would be reducing outside of the field contacts, which limits his capabilities, but does have the Kazakus to play on curve, which is huge.
Yeah, and we saw Luna Love get to play the on curve Kazakus last series for a golem, and she ended up going for the 5-cost golem. But with the Octo and double field contact, I would not be surprised to see the 1-cost golem get picked here for Muzzy.
Yeah, there's always the high upside of the 5 costs, as we talked about. Does go for 5 costs. Okay, well, I didn't even see the first option.
There was the option of Divine Shield, and so I'm curious if Muzzy took the Divine Shield, if he might go for a copy here, again, just to make it really awkward for Dimitri to remove those, because if there's Divine Shields, then it's just going to have to use more resources for Dimitri to clear them.
Yeah.
Outside of just Soul Rend.
I could see draw as well, just because, again, the hand, but Divine Shield summon a copy.
Yep.
Oh.
It feels so good to me in this matchup, and especially with some of those card choices or lack of cards with Dimitri's list. I think this is good. I want to see these 5/5s just take down this game.
Oh, that is a 5-drop.
Let's go.
Right there. If it lives, or if Dimitri pre-breaks these Divine Shields to set up for a Soul Rend, Muzzy can just Shadow Step it back. Who needs Garrotes when you can just win with a couple big Divine Shielded, Clay, Rock, Demons.
I was just gonna let you finish that. You just kept going. All right.
They're made out of something, and I know that Celestalon clarified to me what they were made out of at one point, but I completely forgot, so I'm going to take creative liberty here. They're made out of a clay rock mixture. Well, this is certainly awkward.
Yeah.
Didn't get the neophyte down, but I mean, Dimitri is very far behind. This is brutal.
Yep.
Yeah, field contact.
Okay.
Who cares about the Octobot? Just protect these 5/5s. Muzzy can actually go field contact. Could go like Prize Plunder, Shadow Step, Prize Plunder, or could go like Brain Freeze plus Prize Plunder and not be too upset about things.
Give me that.
Yep, I mean, full clear could just use the weapon to kill off the tour guide as well, keep those divine shields active, which again just makes it even more awkward for DimitriKazov to clear these off of the board. And with a little bit less removal, I mean, some lists are only running one of the unstable anyways, but there's none for Dimitri. So there's even less removal options for him. And again, we're seeing some of the kind of big clunky minions that are great later, but at this point, they are just kind of clogging up his hand.
Yeah, unfortunately, going to have to like Soul Rend and set up for a second Soul Rend. This will discard twice. Actually, could Tour Guide then tap and get a Scavenger down, which would at least put something in the way of these 5/5s. But the problem for Dimitri is this is not the main win condition of Garrote Rogue. While all this is happening, and Dimitri's been distracted by these 5/5s, Muzzy's just been collecting a hand that's going to draw through the deck and kill him with Garrote.
Yeah.
Oh, double giant though. Oh, I forgot second quest completion will get the double healing and gets to get double flesh giant down as well. All right, counteroffensive.
Quite a bit of draw now.
Oh, Battle Master's in hand for Dimitri too. And Muzzy, in order to protect those 5/5, used one Prize Plunder plus a Brain Freeze. So his removal options are at least slightly limited. So if Dimitri can get these Flesh Giants to stick, we could just see the game ending. But Muzzy does have some tools available to try and get through stuff, notably the Prize Plunder's Shadow Step. To be able to clear things off. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
A Snap Freeze! Oh, but 1 mana left. Prep Snap Freeze. Crap.
Okay, so that's what, 7 cards?
Yeah, so with the Shadow Step, that will kill the other giant as well. Right?
Yep, gonna Shadow Step it, yep. So still gets to clear actually both the taunt and one giant with that Prize Plunder and gets to send these golems to face. Yeah, who needs Garrote? What is that anyways? Don't need it.
It's
Deck's only named after it, it's okay.
It's almost lethal from hand for Muzzy without even needing to draw any bleeds. So you got +1 spell damage plus 1 Garrote and a dagger. That's already 4 damage. Dimitri's out of quest healing as well. No removal picked up that can heal. Has to dig for something because right now, with just a Soul Rend, he's very likely dead. He needs something to try and swing it. There's 1 touch, 1 drain soul, and both Bloodshard Bristlebacks left in the deck as well. But this is looking quite grim, even if he were able to find some of those tools, because again, this is not the win condition. This is just a couple of 5/5s that he created with a single card.
This is the best win condition. I love it. I am so glad we got to see this because I've done this on ladder and it's just a very satisfying feeling. Just beating the Warlock down with these 5/5s and not even needing to go for some crazy turn.
Well, that is both Bloodshard Bristlebacks burned and a Drain Soul burned. So now Dimitri has actually 0 healing left besides 1 touch of the Nathrazim, which is not a lot. That's an understatement. Muzzy, though, has no field contacts left.
You're paying for my
Right.
So maybe?
Looking for second augment. Okay, there it is.
Oh, that's lethal. Yeah, that's
Yep.
+2 spell damage. That's 4, and then the dagger.
Yep. So still closes the game out technically with a Garrote, but wow, what a showing! That the 5/5 copy and shield was amazing, and Muzzy being able to protect those. And then, like you said, that turn where he actually ended up finding the freeze for one of the giants after DimitriKazov tried to come back with the kind of the counter play and get this gigantic board was exactly what Muzzy needed there.
Yeah, it was kind of an unorthodox win for Garrote Rogue. I mean, this is one of the... They can win by tempo. A lot of times it's when you're up against an aggressive deck, you don't have time to collect the resources. But it's rare that you see them just kind of beat down the handlock because they usually do have a ton of removal for the early game. And you have to... He dealt 4 damage with Garrote's that game. Didn't draw a single bleed, only had to play 1 Garrote and ended up winning, which is rare. that doesn't happen very often, but another 3-0. So that's 2 3-0s to kick off our Friday here for week number 5. That's going to be Muzzy. Moving on, at the beginning of the week, he was not hurting for points, right? He was in that group of players that was at the middle of the pack, along with DimitriKazov, actually. But this is going to be some much-needed comfort, I feel, for Muzzy moving forward if he can have a good finish this week.